Am I audible? Everything is fine. I am seeing all of you are muted. So if you can just,
Yes, yes, I can hear.
okay. So we are going to do the final sutra. I'll just kind of touch upon the last sutra because there is a gap. The last one was the 21st verse. Suddha Vidya Udayat Chakri Saratva Siddhi. So this is the penultimate stage of the sadhana of the sadhaka in this Sambhavapaya. So he mentions that yadatu mahayogi parimita siddhinam ichha na karoti. When a person is no more desirous, he doesn't have any aspiration for perfecting his tantric skills or his sadhana skills, his meditational skills. Tatha Biswa Surupa Parama Maheswaratmaka Niravachinna Prakasham Abhivanchati Tada Asya Tatswarupatvam Sampadyate Ityaha. In the absence of any desire for any occult powers, any kind of, you see, there are two kinds of expansions. One kind of expansion with the premise that you still have some sort of bheda buddhi or some kind of a relationship with the supreme self. That means that you are not trying to experience that ultimate thing, but you have some sort of a bheda buddhi. One is still ascending, and then he wants to perfect those powers. So you will have the expansion in terms of how you can influence the surroundings, how you can cognitively understand the surroundings. Like, for example, you can have yogika pratyaksha, or already you have done it, that jnana lakshana sannakasha. Like you have a suravi chandana method. So, for example, if you have a sandalwood, it has very good fragrance. From a distance, you can know. You have two components into this cognitive process. One is that you remember its fragrance from a previous sanskara or pratyaya. You have had a pratyaya or pratyaksha earlier of that sandalwood smell, but right now it is at a distance. But you are able to say that this is a sandalwood with a lot of fragrance. Similarly, the yogi, through yogika pratyaya, that particular thing is slightly even more advanced. He is not even looking at an object. No part of the object is visible to the eye. Still, he can see it. He can reduce his size. He can manifest his body in three, four types. So a lot of siddhis we have already discussed. The one before this was Bhuta Sandhana, Bhuta Prithakva, Vishwa Sanghataha. So, have that tremendous power for Vishaykarana of the whole world. What you cannot see, you are able to see it, despite a lot of distance. And then Sarira Prithakvam. So, there are impurities or some pratibandhakas in your consciousness, in your mind. You want to separate it. I was reading in a book, I don't know whether to believe or not believe it, but somebody was saying that Gandhi did a lot of practices of this meditation, and he could shut his ears even though he would be physically active and participating in a crowded meeting place. He could start writing his notes and he would not even hear anything. So he just knew whatever is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, he was able to practice it. If he wanted, he would speak. If he wants to listen, he will listen. If he doesn't, if he wants to only see and not listen, he could only see and not listen. I mean, that's what a person, based on some evidence, he had written an article about how he also had a tantric guru to advise on different ways of meditation to perfect his mind. Maybe he had. One cannot rule that out. A lot of siddhas have this. These kinds of siddhis you will have, but if there is a guy who is not interested in all this, but he wants to go to the next higher level, then Suddha Vidya Udaya Chakriswaratva Siddhi. The chakra, the Shakti chakra and Chakrishwara is that Shiva. That Shiva Satta Prapti, he gets it. Yasmin Kale Yogi Viswaswarupam Prakasha Prakasam Avilasan. So that Vishwaswarupa, you have Prakasa and Vimarsha Rupa. You have one manifesting reality and the one which is the source reality out of which everything manifests. And then saying Avilasan, when he, Tadrika Saktir Anusandhanam Karoti. Anusandhana word is not physically searching for anything, but antardrishtya, when you have that meditative, regime in which you are able to withdraw the mind from external objects, and you are doing anusandhana, means you are persistently meditating on that particular subject. You are trying to understand its meaning, and there is another word which is used. You have to have tadatmya apatti. So we have that old story in Vedanta how a very uneducated person, a farmer who lost his wife, was left with only one buffalo. He goes to a guru who wants moksha, and guru looks at him, doesn't know what to say. He says, okay, who is your Ishta? He has no answer. He says, what is Ishta? I don't know anything. Whom did you love most? I loved my wife, she's gone. What else? No, I love the buffalo I have, because this buffalo is like my mother. She gives me milk. She has served me for a long time. So she is the dearest thing on earth, so far I'm concerned. Okay, now give away a buffalo to any friend of yours and get into this cave and start meditating on the buffalo. And then when the master returns after the Savan, is Anusthana, they generally shut themselves in some cave or temple for the Chaturmasya, for these 4 fortnights. They call it Chaturmasya, it's basically 2 months. So when he came back, some people say he may have died because he hasn't come out of the cave for all these 2 months. He goes and finds out, and this guy is sitting inside and says, please come out. He says, I can't come because my horns are hitting that particular outlet point, which is very small. And the guru says, I'm your guru speaking. Open your eyes. You don't have any horns. Look at me. Then slowly, he sort of, he slowly comes out of it. And then he realizes that he had become like a buffalo in his consciousness. The master can see that his mind has become perfectly pure. And then what does he advise him? He says, now he gives him advice on the Brahma Tattva. He says, this is your mantra and you do. And that guy got realization. So what was the technique? That tadatmya. That you are doing anusandhana, you strongly identify with it by constant mananam, uninterrupted meditation on that particular Shakti. And then he reaches that highest stage and he becomes Chakreshwara. That is the final stage that he reaches. Tadatu aham eva sarvam ityakarakatmakam nirmalam jnanasya samudayat. Then suddenly there arises in him an awareness that I am everything. Why? Because he's already meditating on the Paramashiva, and that is how he becomes everything, because everything has manifested out of Paramashiva. Samudayad Ishvara Swarupa Swa Sakti Chakreshwaratva. One is Sakti Chakra, the wheel of this whole magical power, the wheel of Sakti, that whole energy through which everything appears and disappears, things undergo transformation. That ultimate Shakti Chakra is under whom? Who is the Adhishtan of the Shakti Chakra? Whose Shakti is this? Who is the Shaktiman? That Parameshwara. That is what he gains there. So he's saying Maheshwaryam Siddhyati. So he really becomes Maheshwara. So then there are a lot of discussions that we have discussed. And what is that Suddha Vidya Udayat? He mentions Veda Veda Drishtya. So you have, Suddha Vidya is a stage where you have Veda and Aveda. You recognize you are still a sadhaka, but verily you are also so much invested emotionally, intellectually, through your yogic powers at the level of your will on that Paramasatta that you slowly lose your sense of difference. So that is what is saying, that Mahamaya, that is saying Tattva, Ishvara Tattva. That is that you have that Mahamaya, you say that Tattva, Ishvara Tattva, Sada Siva, Sakti Tattva, and Shiva Tattva. All these Tattvas are mentioned, and this is called Shuddha Vidya. Why is it called Shuddha Vidya? Because you see, there are other Vidyas of Maya, these are not Shuddha Vidyas. There is a clouding aspect to it. lot of powers that are there which are binding us, which are kind of trapping us in samsara. Sometimes we think we are also powerful, but we are basically a cog in the machine, this huge machine, and we are trapped in it, moving from one activity to another, one thought process to another. But only when we start returning to our source consciousness, that Shiva Tattva, that we would be able to see through this veil of Maya in Vedanta language. And here, this particular Maya, these energies are malina. They are kind of different kind of, these are pratibandhakas. They are binding in nature. And you jump in the next step where these so-called powers, their games and everything, which set a wave of limitation around our freedom, they are discarded, and you're slowly becoming or enjoying greater proximity to your pure consciousness. And by enjoying that proximity, you are removing the veil of ignorance, and you are removing all the binding natures around you. Your nature itself, which appears as a drag on your spiritual progress, once you meditate on this, on the source consciousness, that Paramashivatva, that Suddha Vidya Udaya, that particular thing, when it starts to manifest, then Chakreshwaratva Siddhi. That is what we had done it with a lot of. And what are the things that has to be done? He had mentioned Vedana Adi Dharmasya. Vedana Anadi Dharmasya. What happens there? Anadi Dharma. Who is the Dharmi? Paramashiva. He's the Dharmin. And what is his Dharma? He has no beginning. And Paramatmatva Bodhana. And you are that supreme consciousness and you realize it. Bharjana Aparamatmatve. Whatever is not Paramarthata, wherever you don't see Paramarthata, Paramatatva, you discard it. That means all the Bheda Buddhis, our tendency to see things as real. I mean, you look at yourself. So, you are going to a temple or you are doing some sadhana, some serious sadhana. Right now in India, there's a election time. And a lot of news and garbage on the television channels. The moment you watch any news, you will just get bored after some time. If you want peace. So what do you do? All these things are going on, but you are not affected. You are quietly sitting, you are doing your japa, your meditation, or you are doing whatever you want to do. In that state, even if people are talking about a cricket match, people are talking about elections, whatever, you may be sitting in the tube or in the metro, you may be going home. A lot of people are talking about a lot of things, they are watching a lot of things on their phones. You are not concerned about anything. The moment you are removed from that state of unity, then you are actually bothered about all these things. So what is the election result? What about the cricket match? What about somebody else's daughter's examination result? All these things will come and trouble the mind. That is why he mentions what? Varjana aparamatmatve. So you have to remove whatever is not that eternal self. That means all these spheres of limited consciousness, spheres of self-blinding thought processes, if I can put it in these words. You look beyond them by discarding them. How do you discard? I mean, the Buddhist doesn't believe in God. How does he deal with mind and its games? They say they have this thing, if you walk in some of these residential colonies in US or in Europe, they have these sensor lights. So there would be no street lights, nothing, but as you're walking, the lights suddenly they'll all pop up. How? Because they have sensors. There's something moving. So they get switched on, and then people can see you. You can see the building. The moment you move off, okay, they switch off. So you don't see anything. Now, why am I mentioning this? Is that when you switch on your lights to see the Paramatatva, the samsara loses its significance for you. You will not be interested in all these things. When the attention shifts to this lower sphere, or in different languages, if I can put it, when our attention loses its connectivity with that Paramatatva, or that Supreme Self or Divinity, or Paramashiva, when we get disconnected from that channel of self-realization, the non-selves around us appear as part of the self. They become very important for us. And it can happen in meditation, or you're reading a book, or you're doing some sadhana, you go to a retreat, or you go to a cave or anything. You spend a week and you come back. First 2 days you're happy. Third day, the pressure of work and the family situations, all that, they again smother under their pressure the precious spiritual experiences you had. And then you look at your calendar, you find, when can I get another 2 days so that I can go and do my meditation? Now, this guy has already advanced in this process. Tasmad vidyeti sochete. Therefore, it's called vidya. Okay, that is taken from Swachhanda Tantra, the 6th chapter, 396. Tatrasto, then, he's mentioning that Paramakaranam, Parashmin Tejasi Vyakti Tatrastha Sivatam Rajet. So you'll attain that. Earlier you had mentioned Bhairavapatti, Shivatam Brajet. You will become like Shiva. That means what? All limitations which surround us, which trouble us, which pull us down, they lose force over us because they actually don't exist in Vedanta language. Many of these actually don't exist. They figuratively exist, phenomenally exist, but in reality, ultimately, they don't matter and they don't exist. So that is how you have discussed that. All right. Then that is the final verse in the first chapter, in the Sambhava Upaya. There is a particular word you must have read in different tantric texts. It's called Mantrodhara. Mantra Uddhara, Mantrodhara. Sometimes there would be a thing called Mantra Virya. Mantra, what is mantra and what is virya? And what is this importance of mantra? It will come in the next chapters. So we have earlier discussed, there was one sentence that wherever there is a distinction between the mantra and the mantri, there is no success. The mantri is the guy who is chanting it, and there is this mantra, because that's like a vehicle, that's a symbolic vehicle for connecting with that divine force, that divine energy. Okay. You remember earlier, we have already discussed that these particular whole universe, they are Varnamatrikas, is binding energy, right? Whatever you want to discuss, whatever you want to think about, whatever you want to say, you'd say with the help of language. And with the help of language, whatever you say, whatever you do, you are making use of alphabets. And these alphabets, and there are vargas. There are 8 Sakti vargas. There is one Suddha Vidya, that, Swatantra Shakti or Lord Shiva, and there are 7 vargas. So you have the Swara Varnas, then you have Ka Varga, Ka Kha Ga Gha Ga, Cha Cha Ja Ja Niya. These are 1 vargas. And there is one Adhishtatri Devata. And there are a lot of mysticism associated with these Sakti vargas. We have studied it in the course of discussing one of the earlier sutras. So what he's saying is that mantra and virya. So he look at the first sutra. Let's do Ucharana. Mahahradanusandanan mantra viryanu. So break the sutra into different words. Mahahrada. Mahan sasu hradaha, Mahan hradaha. Mahahrada. Great lake, great ocean. Rada is more like a water reservoir. So it's a lake. Maharada. Anusandhanat. Again, anusandhana, same meaning of the word. We can further elaborate. But one thing he would say, that it is when you have become inwardly oriented and you're meditating on what? Maharada. Is it a physical lake? It's very interesting that in one of the Upanishads, There is a meditation on the Brahman also as a great lake. Similarly, there is this Dahara Upasana, Antar Akasha Upasana, the inner universe, worshipping the inner universe, meditating on the inner universe. There are different upasanas called Vidyas in Upanishads. So there is also imagination of the self as a great lake, huge lake. And why so, we will discuss. There will be some explanations, some mystical, there are some theoretical, conceptual explanations. Why is the self? Why Paramashiva? Why his Swatantra Shakti, his ultimate energy, is called Maharada, the great lake? There are one quick way to make sense of it. The lake, the ocean, has waves, has water bubbles. And that is prapancha, that is sansara, these are appearances. The ocean doesn't dance. The waves appear as if they are dancing. They are having movement. The ocean remains. There is some surface level disturbance, but the ocean remains as it is. Same way, this Maharada symbolically stands for that great, unlimited, not definable, free from any limitation, that boundless, pure, conscious power of Lord Shiva is compared with Maharada. Anusandhanat. Because you are constantly meditating on it, then what happens? Mantra viryanubhavaha. You are experiencing mantra and its virya, the power of the mantra. You experience it. So the power that is actually invoked through these mantras is that supreme energy. That is what you are able to have anubhava of, means you are going to experience that. In brief, that is this particular sutra. Now let us look at some of the explanations, and we would be looking at the translation. So what is he saying? That so this infinite lake, now Maharada here, what he's saying, the brief Britti saying, Parasambhi Deva, Parasambit, pure consciousness. So there are different words for that Paramashiva, Parasambit, all these words are representing the self only. Parasambhi Deva, Swachatvat, Swachatva, Anavritatva, Gambhiratvadi, Dharma Yogat. He's saying why it has to be called a great lake. That is what he's trying to explain. And what are these? Swachvatva. It is pure, it's nirmala, it's transparent, it is limpid. That means you can look at a lake. And sometimes, if it's completely quiet, the water is very clean. You can go and stand on the banks of a water reservoir. You can look in, and on a Sunday afternoon, if you go, any day on the afternoon, if you go, you can see the bottom of the lake or the ocean. Water is completely pure, completely still. You are able to see it. Swachatva, anavritatva. This word anavritatva is also interesting. You know what it is trying to say? It is swachva, swach. It is very clean, transparent. But you know, it's this pure consciousness reflects the whole universe. All the Shaktis are emanating out of that Swatantra Shakti, God's infinite, indefinable power. And it is reflecting everything. It is a pratibhimbita, bimba and pratibimba. And he's saying, even though in Vedanta, Brahman, that pure consciousness, is not visible to the bare eyes, and it is reflected in our minds, and that becomes Chidabhasa. And this whole universe we see is again reflected in us. The pure consciousness is reflected in our minds, in our Chidabhasa. And then we have experience of who we are. Here he's saying that pure consciousness, Lord Shiva alone is holding this. He's the Adhar of everything. He's the Adhishtan of everything. So even though everything is reflected in him only, he is not covered by it. He is showing off this whole universe, because unlike Advaita Vedanta, here the Supreme Self is not Nirvikara, Nishala, Nishkriya, no, it's dynamic. It's creating the whole universe out of its sweet will, and it can destroy. It's looking out his creation, it's looking within his pralaya. It's not a inanimate object, it's not Nishkriya or something, it's very dynamic, self-aware. So it's the Supreme Self. And it's fully aware of itself. Its self-awareness is where you locate its Sakti, and that is what is Parvati Tattva, Sakti Tattva. It's self-awareness. And that is the Vimarsha Shakti, out of which the whole samsara gets created, that he explains. So what he mentions here is that, what is that first word he mentioned is Swachatva, then Anavritatva means, even though it carries the image of everything, it is not covered by the image of anything. God creates this world, he doesn't confuse this world with himself. It's a creation of him. The painter makes a picture of himself and doesn't confuse that picture to be himself. He creates his own picture. He's a painter, he can make a portrait of himself. It's like that. And the painter knows this is a painting. It's his own rachana, it's his own creation. And then he's saying Gambhiratva. That Gambhira, what is Gambhira? It's very deep. Why? Well, Vedanta says Avang Manashogocharaha. It's not easily discernible by the mind. It's not easily it's not describable with a few words or sentences. You cannot put it into a frame. Your camera, your cognitive camera, however powerful it may be, however best may be the lens you are using, you will not be able to capture its picture. So it's very gambhira, very deep. You cannot fathom its depth. That means it's beyond your cognitive powers to make sense of that parashambit. Dharma yogad mahahradaha. That Swatantra Sakti, that ultimate energy of the Paramashiva is called a Mahahrada. It's like a great lake. And then he will again, why so? Tasya anusandhanat, Kshemaraja will explain, this is Vritti. Tasya anusandhanat, Mahahradasya anusandhanat. What is this? Antarmukhataya anaratam tat tadatma vimarshanat. He is expanding that word, anusandhanat. He is saying antarmukhataya. You are introverted. You are not wasting your perceptual, your cognitive, your emotional energies trying to make sense of or connect with the external world. Even our mental world is external to the self. So you can look at by external means whatever is non-self. It could be your mental world, or it could be out of physical world. It could be subtle or it could be gross. Both. These worlds, he's saying, antarmukhataya, but you have turned around, you're focused on yourself, not your face or your ahankara, but on that parama, antarmukhataya, anaratam. And then you're not artha, you're not disturbed, you're not restless, because restless and this meditation cannot go together. Tat tadatmya vimarshanat, like that story of the buffalo meditation. He's not meditating like that because he has already finished the sutras up till 21 of the Siva Sutras. He's a very advanced student of the Trika Saivism and is doing deep meditation on the Paramashiva Tattva. And then what happens? Tata Vimarshana, through this Vichara, what happens to him? Mantranam Virya Bhutasya. All these mantras, they are powered, the Virya Bhutasya. And what is that Virya? What is Virya Bhuta? Where lies the power of the mantras? So you have Medha Sukta. All the young boys are advised to chant this Medha Sukta for superior brain power, superior intuition, superior memory. There's Saraswati Suktam because you want to accelerate your Vidya Grahanam. So many suktas are there in the Vedas. Now, you do also a lot of mantras. So you chant these mantras for getting some benefits in studies or financially. A lot of people say, what mantra to do? My financial situation isn't very good. And some people say, what mantras to do? What's your problem? My husband doesn't come home in time. I'm very, very suspicious. Maybe he likes someone else. Where is he going? Is he going to a club or a bar? Where does he go in the evenings? Why is he so late every day? I'm very disturbed. My children are disturbed. So, what do you want? One mantra. And sometimes some guy is in disturbance. What's your problem? I like that girl, but she talks to someone else, not me. I want a mantra. So, all these mantras, the market of mantras, there is a mantra bazaar. If you pick up any of these books, roadside books on Tantra, they will give you a lot of mantras that you can chant and you'll get quick success, even though it may not happen. They offer all that. But in the true sense, what is the pure energy of this mantra sadhana? What is the power of these mantras? He's saying, Punna ahanta vimarshamayasya mahamantrasya anubhavaha. Mantra virya, that you will realize, you will experience it, is that you will realize the self. Remember, if that is what is the goal of a person, then we will go into the details. There are two types of mantra adhikaras. In the beginning, when you say doing some sadhana, somebody chants some Kali stotras and Kali mantras and all that. And what Thakur used to do? He used to do any of these? Perhaps not. Not after he got the realization. He used to go and talk to her in very normal way, like a little boy will talk to his mom. Mirabai was chanting in Lord Krishna's mantras. No, absolutely not. Why? No, because she had other poems to write. Because he's saying that in my breath, सांसों के माला में, सुमरू में पीका नाम. I don't need a mala. I'm breathing. That is my mala. With each breath, I'm remembering my lover, my beloved, Lord Krishna. When Tara looks at Lord Krishna, she becomes Krishna and Krishna becomes Radha. That is Vedanta. Bhakta and Bhagavan become one. No mantras are there. Mantras become fruitless. Mantras are a means at an intermediate state to remove, to flush out the inherited problems or pratibandhakas or impurities in the mind of a sadhaka. But once you are no more interested in the siddhis, then you are going to the heart of this mantra, which is mantra virya, and that mantra virya is not getting siddhis in order to influence anyone. I know the Mohini mantra, I can drive this girl mad after me. A lot of these people still sell books telling all these stories, cock and bull stories. I'm not very sure. The text says, if you go to Assam, there are quite a few books, you'll find that. Kamakhya or in Bengal and different parts, these books are still selling, they're still there. And interestingly, in North India, I had gone to Banaras to a big Sanskrit publishing house, and I found he has books on Tantra and Ayurveda and yoga. Not too many books on Vedanta. I said, why no Vedanta? He said, nobody reads them anymore. There is no market for this. Tantra, yes. Thousands types of mantra, Tantra books are selling. If people are insecure, they want quick results. This particular mantra virya that we are talking about is not in terms of getting siddhis, which has anything to do with the external reality, because this guy has realized that this external reality, however power you may have over it in terms of influence or in terms of your ability to transform it, remember, this is dreamlike, this is just an appearance, it's real, but it's anitya. And you know something superior. You know the source which manifests all that. So you lose interest in the ability to influence things. You want to go back to that parasakti, that parasamvet. So Once you are interested in that, then you are not interested in doing any magic. You are more interested in Ma Kali. Then whatever power she can offer to you. You want to go back to the source. In that thing, there are two adhikaras of mantra. One is for siddhis. The other one is to actually overcome all these siddhis and go beyond and just be satisfied with that mantra virya, which gives you that abhedapatti. You are not different from your sadhya vastu. Whatever you wanted to realize, you lose interest in it because you want to go to the Parameshwara. You know me interested in these games, little games. They don't anymore attract you or fascinate you. And therefore, he's saying, Anubhava. And what is that? Anubhava swatma rupataya spuranam bhavati. That mantra virya manifests, appears, blossoms. We have already discussed in another sutra earlier. When a person embarks on this journey to go and realize that Bhairava, Samapatti, what happens to him? He's saying for him, every moment is a moment of wonder. So you will have limitless happiness in a certain stage. You'll be like a crazy guy who would be supremely happy all the time. Thakur used to be like that. He used to walk up to the top of the temple and shout, I know where is Ma, I know what it is all about. Come, I'll tell you. He used to be supremely happy, laughing and walking around. And sometimes he'll be in tears. These are the states when the bhakta is completely united with that supreme. He doesn't have any individuality, and these utterances and appearances. Sometimes they say things which others won't even understand. All these kinds of things come to you. That is what he's trying to say. Spuranam bhavati. Okay. Now we would look at the Kshemaraja commentary, and that's very interesting. That gives us a handle to make sense of it in a better way. Yadatu swa atma ratam eva. Swa atma ramatam eva. So you remember this word comes in Bhagavad Gita again and again in the commentaries. Sometimes the bhakta is only interested, he becomes an Atma Rama. So you're only interested, you are not interested in anything else outside yourself. Become Atma Rama means you are happy in recognizing, feeling your pure self. No external motivation, enticement, attraction, promise of getting something which is outside of you fascinates you anymore. So you become Atma Rama. So that is what he's saying. Yadatu swatma ramatam eva. Then he's saying ramatam eva ichchati. That is what he gets it. He wants to have complete self-realization. He wants to only dwell in himself or herself. Tada asya sadhakasya. What happens of the yogi? Para bhattarika sambit. Bhattarika is that Ananya Devi. Paradevi, Parashakti, Parabhattarika, Sambit, that Parashambit. And what is this? Ichha Sakti Pramukham. Sthulameya Paryantam Vishwam Vamanti. You know what? We have already discussed that sutra, Ichha Sakti Ruma Kumari. There are three powers of this Paramashiva. One is Ichha Sakti, the other one is Jnana Sakti, and the third one is Kriya Sakti. Ichha Sakti is the power of will. Jnana Sakti is the power of knowledge. And Kriya Sakti is the power of action. So power of will is supreme. And therefore he's saying Ichha Sakti Pramukha. That means where Ichha Sakti is Pramukha, that means it dominates over Jnana Sakti and Kriya Sakti, which are also there. Then what he's saying, Sthulameya Paryantam Vishwa Bhamanti Khechari Chakradi Asesavaha Pravartakatva Swachatva, Anavritatva, Gambhiratvadi, Dharma Yoga. He's talking about why that Maharada he's explaining. Each of these words, he's saying what he's trying to say here. That venerable, that Parasambet, positing, because it starts with that Ichha Sakti, right? So you have that, you also have that Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti will be added there. Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. These are Pancha Shaktis of Paramashiva. So Icha Shakti, from so far it starts manifesting. Icha Shakti is the primary force, is the primary Shakti projecting the universe, okay, from this subtle universe. It's just outward looking. God looks away from him, outside of him, in him. That is what is samsara. And starting with what the word is saying, stulameya paryantam. So he starts creating subtle elements. Like, for example, if you look at Vedanta, Hiranyagarbha, what he creates first, these Pancha Tanmatras are there. He creates Sukshma Bhutas are there, and he'll make combination of it. He'll create Buddhi, and then he will create all these, these Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, combining different elements, and then Annamaya Kosha. So he'll first create Akasha, out of Akasha comes Vayu, from Vayu comes Agni, from Agni comes Jala, from Jala comes Prithvi Tattva, and having different kind of elements and their attributes. This whole, the Panchikarana Vidya happens. This whole Sansara happens. Jivas are created, all that creation starts. So first you have subtle creations, like Ahankara is created. Okay, Buddhi is created, all these elements are created. The Sukshma Bhutas are created. And then you have the Indriyas are created. Manas is created. Then, of course, the Annamaya Kosha finally comes. The Panchabhuta, the pranas are created. And finally comes the Annamaya Kosha. Similarly, he's saying Sthula Meya Paryantam. That means the Prithvi Tattva ultimately. Meya Paryantam Vishwa Vamanti. So he creates, right? He projects this whole sansara. And then he's saying Khechari Chakradi. What is that Khechari? You see, there are these four words which are mentioned. Okay, Khechari, Gochari, Dikchari, Bhuchari. These four words, you remember, they'll come again and again in this whole Shaiva Tantra, even in other things. The Khechari, Kha is Akasha. Khechari Tattva is Pramata, the Atma Tattva, this knower, the Pramata. Pramata is different from self. In Vedanta, Antakarna Upahita Chaitanya, that is Pramata, the knower. Now, the Pramata is not there in deep sleep. When you are in deep sleep, you're in a coma. The knower is not there. Self is there. Self also knows the knower because it's Sakshi. Sakshi Vritya, Avidya Vritya. It knows through the Sakshi Chaitanya. So that is Sakshi Vritti. That is a witness self, is always there. It doesn't require any senses to experience. The mind requires senses to experience. Pratyaksha. Then based on the sanskara of the Pratyaksha, Smriti, all that happens to the Pramata. And Pramata knows through Pramana. So what are the Pramanas? All the Pramanas like Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, right? Arthapati, Anupalabdhi, all these are there. They are these Pramanas. Pramana means Pramakaranam, means of knowledge. So the knower knows through different means of knowing, either through logical deduction or induction or by sense perception, he knows. That is Pramata, the mental self. So what he's saying, that is Khechari, because it has close consciousness, close connection with pure consciousness. So it's called Khechari Shakti. And then what? Gochari. What is Gochari? What moves around all the time in you? The mind, Antakarana. Gochari. So that is referred to as Gochari. Each one of this Antakarana is called Gochari. Khechari, Pramata, knower. Gochari runs around, that Manas. And Dikchari, Dik means what? Space. Chari moves around. What moves around? Your Bahya Indriyas. The eye travels through space to see something. The ears listen something. So the smell. So you see, they are moving out of the body, the senses. So the center of the senses is Gochari, then comes, Dikchari. And what is Bhuchari? Bhuchari is this whole world of Bhu. Bhu is about material space. That Shakti, that is the domain of this particular Shakti. That Shakti is called Bhuchari. So Khechari, Gochari, Dikchari, Bhuchari. Khechari is Pramata, that Pramatri Shakti. Then you have that Manas Antakarana Shakti, that is domain of that Gochari. and the dictionary go this the domain of senses, that is its sphere, and final the sphere of external objects, bhuchari connected. Okay, the outside is. So what he mentions here is khechari chakradi. Khechari chakradi, that means khechari gochari dikchari, khechari gochari dikchari and bhuchari chakradi, because it is Mahan Hrada, it is a great lake. Why so? It is that pure ocean of consciousness out of which these ripples, these manifesting energies emanate. What are the names of these energies? You can call them Isha Sakti, Jnana Sakti, Isha Sakti, Jnana Sakti, and Kriya Sakti, but he's saying more specifically the Khechari, Gochari, Dikchari, and Bhuchari. These are chakras, these are domains of the play of these energies, waves of energies emanating out of that great lake. Clear? Why he's mentioning? He's saying Khechari Chakradi Asesa Baha Pravartakatva, Baha movement of these waves. That is the Swatantra Sakti of Paramashiva. Independent energy, not limited by anything. Out of the Swatantra Sakti, the specific waves, the frequencies are different, domains are different. These waves emanate for performing different actions, because we are talking about how sansar manifests. So these are the Sakti chakras. So chakradi asesa baha pravartakatva. Pravartakatva is a dharmi of what? That Mahan Hrada, that Parasambit. And another one, what he's saying, Swachatva, it is pure, it's transparent. Anabhritatva, it reflects things, but it is not touched by that reflection. Like on a film screen in a Vedantic language, you project pictures and you see dancers and you see the villain, you see an innocent girl being chased by a villain, and you find police comes and kills that villain. All the stories, these stories don't affect the film screen. Film screen carries this film, carries the stories and characters and the music and everything without being affected by any of these. Mahan Hrada. Then what else is Swachhata, Anabhritatva, Gambhiratvadi Dharma Yoga. Gambhiratva I have already explained, because you have that pure thing that it's very difficult to understand it. Okay. Then what happens is Mahahradaha, that is the great lake. Tasya Anusandhanat. When you are doing Anusandhana meditation on it, what is that meditation all about? Antaramukhataya anaratam tat tadatma vimarshanat. Everyone is saying the same language. So you do endless, uninterrupted, very, very focused, single pointed meditation. Aveda Atma Vritya. You are not seeing yourself as any more different. You are only focused on that. When you have Dhyakara Vritti, you are only meditating on what you are meditating on, not thinking about anything else. You even not thinking about yourself. Vakshamanasya. What we wanted to say that Parasambit, what is that? Can you mute yourself, please? Okay. So he's saying Maharadha tasya anusandhanat antaramukhataya anaratam tattadatme vimarshanat bhakshamanasya. Bhakshamanasya means what I am trying to explain to you right now. What is that? Savdarasi spharatmaka. Then just look at it. Savdarasi spharatmaka. You see, there are these two Saktis. One is that Matrika Shakti, the other one is Malini Shakti. The Malini Shakti, the Matrika Shakti is that, you know, these Varna Matrikas. So Ahamakara Vritti happens there. So what is mentioning here is that Savda Rasi Sparatmaka. Paramta Vimarshamayasya Mantra Viryasya Anubhavaha. So you have these mantras are created, and that's para that you, when you you do ucharana of any of these mantras, these are like virgin mothers, They have the potential to be mothers, but there is like an eligible grown-up girl who can be mother. Every alphabet is like that mother. She's a virgin mother, she can be a mother. Yes, Sabda Matrikas. And they create mantras, and these has the potential energies in them, depending on how you construct that mantra. And these are powerful symbolic agencies. You have bija mantras, then you have elaborate mantras, and all these will come in our when we move forward to the next chapter. How to do mantra ucharana, how to do meditation, all these things are going to come. So he's saying was spara. So sparanta vimarshamayasya. So in that he will quote from another that Malini Vijaya Tantra. He'll quote a section from it. Interesting sloka. I'll read it out to you. So that you have these Matrika and Malini. The Malini is what is the Shorupa? It's Maha. It's not Aham. It's Maha. And what is that? It destroys. One is the creative energy. The other one is the destructive energy. Mahakali is both creative and destructive. She creates and she destroys. That we have done. Ichha Sakti Ruma Kumari. Kumari Kridayam. It's a game. This whole creation and destruction is just a game. It's just an appearance and disappearance. She creates and she destroys. Therefore, he's saying, Bimarsamayasya mantra viryasya anubhavaha. So that Matrika and Malini Shakti, which is the essence of these mantra, virya, that whole power is that abhedatmaka pratyaya, that realization that I'm no different. Swatma rupataya spuranam bhavati. So there are two categories of sadhakas. One category will do mantras for some siddhis. The other category of sadhakas are the ones where they do these sadhanas and the outcome of this is not any siddhi but complete self-realization. Spuranam bhavati swatma rupataya. You have complete self-realization. Spuranam bhavati atayeva Sri Malini Vijay Tantra. And I'm just looking at that particular sloka. And it's a beautiful sloka, he says. यासा शक्तिर जगत धातु कथिता समवायिनी यासा शक्ति ही that शक्ति जगत धातु which is the creative principle of this whole sansara, the element out of which this is all projected. Kathita samavayini, like you have mitti, you have clay out of which clay pot is created. Ichhatvam tasya sa devi sisrikho pratipadyate. Ichhatvam tasya sa devi tasya kasya mahashivasya paramashivasya sa devi sisrikhyoho. A person who wants to create, sisrikhya means the desire to create. So who is the person who is having desire to create is Paramashiva only. Ichhatvam, that manifests, that Shakti manifests is Isha Shakti. Pratipadyate, that is how the soul becomes a creative. So what he's saying that Ataiva Malini Vijaye iti upakramya, starting from there, Ichhadi Pramukhat. Then, so he's saying that what? Bheda Rupataya. So Ichhadi Pramukhat. So let's go back to what we are discussing now. Malini Vijay is over. Just a minute. So he says that Matrika and Malini that I've explained. So Malini, you know what the Shastra says. Why that Malini word? Malate Vishwam Antaha Dhatte iti. That basically destroys this whole thing. So there are two ways. The Varna Matrika starts with A, A, E, E until Ksha. The Malini, there is a different way of pronouncing these 50 alphabets. So Na, Ri, Ril, Rul, R, Tha, Cha, Dha, I, Na, U, Ba, Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Ga, I, A, Va, Bha, Ya. So there is a different way. The experts actually mug it up. They remember all the 50 letters in that particular thing I'm reading out. So you have this Malini thing. So one is destructive energy, the other one is the creative energy. Okay. both the things are mentioning, saying. So he's mentioning that when you have this particular thing, okay, and you are trying to sort of experience it, and that Shakti is the creator of this whole world. And when you want to create this Paramashiva, the desire, that is what is called this Ichha Shakti. So when you have these, after showing that, this Shakti, sort of whatever you are saying, that it becomes the entire universe. So it becomes the entire universe, it gets destroyed also. You have Matrika and Malini, two forms. You have this Ichha Shakti, starts with the Varna Matrikas. The divine willpower, Ichha Shakti, then it becomes Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti and everything. And this happens, that Shakti itself, that Parasakti, you attain it. Okay, and therefore it is the great lake. That is what it's mentioning. And that is why he's saying Tasya Anusandhan iti upurapaya ichchadi pramukhat. So it is pramukhataya, that we say. Bheda rupataya matrika malini rupatam asesa vishwamayim saktehe pradarshya. That, you know, it has mentioned in the Malini Vijay Uttara Tantra, that how that you have this Panchasat, you have this Bana Matrikas, you have Malin Shakti, and you have this Matrika Shakti, Tata eva mantrodhara darshitaha. So this is the mantrodhara happens. Okay. And then what he's trying to say here is like this. There are two ways in which you can do the sadhana and you can have realization. So we looked at it, and there is another sutra in the Spandakarika. In the Spandakarika, he's mentioning something. There are tadakramya valang mantraha sarvagya valasalinaha pravartante adhikarasya karanani vadihinam. So, you know, you have this first mantra where people do sadhana to get siddhis. Tatreva sampraliyante shantarupa niranjanaha. Saharadhaka chittena tena te shiva dharminaha. You know, so there are two contradictory things he's mentioning, that ultimately this, when they are doing the essential mantra virya, is actually swatma rupatva prapti. It's not about getting any siddhis. So in the next verse, in the particular discussion that he is doing, he's switching and switching gear in his explaining that one particular sutra. This is the chapter Mantra and Virya. In the second chapter, this is being discussed. There are first mantra and second mantra. So it's mentioning tadakramya tad valam niravarna chidrupa adhishtaya mantraha sarvajnatvadina valena slagha yuktaha pravartante anugrahadau swadhikare karanani yatha dehina. The way your hands and legs you use, you know, you want to make a painting, you use your hands, you use your fingers, you want to see something, use your ears and eyes and everything. Na anyan akaradi visheshana. So you have these mantras and all. It's not like external application of it, but you use those energies and they become very effective. Tatreva sampraliyante, tatreva swa bhavyo swabhavyomni nibrutadhikaraha praliyante santarupaha maya kalushya rahitaha. They are free from the bondage of Maya. Therefore, they are not enamored by any external oriented manifestation of the energies one can draw into themselves through any kind of mantra sadhana. Saha sadhaka chittena. Then when you have that, sadhikara chittena, sadhaka chittena, anena karanena, Siva Sayojana swabhavena iti sivatmaka uchante. So, very briefly, what he's trying to say is that they are not interested with any external manifestations, but they become tataha tadvanusandhanat matrika malini satatva mantra virya anubhava iti yuktam uktam. Therefore, it is mentioned that this is, they will get that mantra virya anubhava. So we have just crossed the time. We will take one more class to wind up the whole chapter, because you must have forgotten what we discussed in the first class and stuff like that. So we'll do a summing of exercise in the next class before we proceed to the second chapter, which is Saktopaya. Sambhavapaya is over. There is a bit of connecting introduction to the next chapter in Kshemaraja. We'll look at it and we'll graduate to the second chapter after the next one, where we'll do the summing of the first chapter. Any questions? We can have 1 minute. Any questions, or we'll do the Santi mantras? Is there any questions? Okay, so we'll do the Santi mantras. Any questions?
May I just?
Sure.
As you understand earlier, that meditation is one of the means to deep dive into that Mahahridaya. Meditation is understood, but sounding these mantras and spelling out, uttering these mantras, how does it help to control the mind and achieve that consciousness? That's slightly dicey. This is sound energy, basically. Mantras are basically sound energy. Is it?